Hi, I'm Rosie and I make stuff. In this video is going to be part 2 to my making of the Sophie dress. I will link above if you've missed that. Where did I get to in the last video? I had just finished mocking up the bodice. Skirt is complete and the bodice needs to be made. So enjoy. I have cut out my pattern pieces in both the outer wool fabric and the lining fabric and thread marked the edges. I'm just joining together the side seams here by matching up the threaded lines and sewing them together. Somewhere in this mess is my dress. Maybe if I show it that way around, I can actually see it. There's a definite armhole. So this is one side. They're not really going to meet in the middle, but they are going to overlap. So I'm making each side separately and then fuse them together somehow. You can tell I've really thought this out. I still have all my seam allowances uncut and unsorted out, just in case I need to make any adjustments, so it's making it all bubble a little bit. Right, so now I'm gonna make the other side, which I've already started. Got my two middle pieces. Just need to put the two front and back pieces on, and then I can start attaching them to my skirt. I've sewn up my strap and I just gave it a little bit of extra room just because it felt like it needed it when I put it on my mannequin. Yeah, now I'm going to tidy it up. And just like the skirt, I finished off the inside seams with flat felling. Please enjoy the therapeutic snippy sounds. I also snipped the lining around the armhole so that I can neaten that up and fold over the edge and sew it down. These were a lot more pleasant to sew than the skirt because they were a lot smaller and a lot more easy to handle. And it went along fairly quickly, which was nice. I could fold over a very small little seam allowance on the armhole and pin it down. Oh no, I use these clippy clip things. These are great. They are very expensive if you buy them like branded, but if you just get them in a multi-pack off eBay, they are very economical, I should say. I think I got a bag of 50 for like £3 or something. And they are pretty good. And now I have a nice neat armhole with a nice neat hem. I should probably remember to take out those basting threads. I put a pin in the pattern piece here because I decided to change the line on the front where it swoops down, because I thought that thread marked line was just a little bit too close to the bust point and I wanted a little bit more coverage, so I'm just pinning a new line with the French curve. I just cut off the excess and pin it down. And I'm going to sew down a nice neat edge, cutting down the lining fabric on the inside and folding it over. Oh yeah, I got a new tin for my clips. Hooray for stuff that comes in tins, I guess. I'm pretty sure it was some nougat from a Christmas selection. I do like working with wool. It works really nicely on the bias. On a curve like this, it just folds over nicely and doesn't pull or tug. Basically my favourite fabric. I have two nice front pieces now. I really need to tidy my desk, it's just got bits of crap crap everywhere. So, I have 2 armholes. And a nice front piece. I've measured this distance is the distance between the darts on the skirt, so they'll line up nicely. And there's going to be 4 buttons, but this is going to be like a faux closure because the actual closure is going to be at the back, where it's going to be a kind of steep scoop. And now I can attempt attaching the skirt. I spent a long time lining up the 2 darts, only to realise that I wanted this front bit of the pinafore to not be attached to the skirt, if that makes sense. To be a faux closure, I wanted it to be just slightly over the seam, so it would attach to the back part of the closure, but the front part will be folded under and stitched down separately. I then stitched together this central panel on the skirt. I didn't join together the side panels in the skirt quite yet because I wanted to attach a contrasting applique of velvet and have that go into the seam so that it wouldn't look attached and it would just look like it flows into the skirt. I've gathered my pleats and pinned it all together here so I can trace a very rough pattern piece for my velvet. I guess this is not the best way to do it, but it worked out just about how I needed it to. And I wanted the velvet piece to flow in a line, the same line as the front panel sweeps down at the front, and then end 1.5 inches high so that my closure placket at the back can cover it. Just cut out my pattern piece in paper scissors, always, and then use fabric scissors on the actual velvet. I thread marked the line from my pattern piece so I'd have a lovely curve, and trimmed a very thin seam allowance and folded it over. And I recommend you fold over and pin from the other side because you have the potential for losing pins inside your stitching. And yes, I did do that. And yes, it was painful to find. And I can just attach it to the front. This will just get whip stitched down at the top, and the excess will go into the seam allowance at the waist. I put it on my dress form for a bit because it was very difficult to see what was happening, and there's so many pins and so many basting lines and basting threads and tacking, and oh my goodness, I didn't know what was happening. So I put it on my dress form for a few days, let it sit, just had a look at it for a while to see which was working, which wasn't. And while that was going on, I could do my buttons. And I have these mysterious, archaic objects, which I don't think anyone uses anymore. I just cut out very rough squares of velvet and very roughly did a running stitch around them so I could gather them over the top. I used 2 pence pieces for the front and 1 pence pieces for the back, and they turned out to be absolutely the perfect size, although they are a little heavy. So I'm glad the front is a faux closure because having 4 2 pence pieces on would pull it down, I think. And here I have a lovely faux button and lots of horrible cut off bits of velvet. Just check the placement. I sneakily decided to put a dart into the side because the original pattern had 2 darts in the front, one of which I closed, and I really needed that second dart, so I just popped that in sneakily and injured myself. As you can see, so many pins in this thing, it was an absolute hazard. I could just whip stitch this down and close that dart while I was at it. It's not really a structural dart, I just needed to nip out the excess. It's more of a tuck than a dart, I think, at this point. I think at this point I have stitched down the skirt to the top on these two side panels now. Oh yes, so here is my pin that I lost inside. Oh, there we go. I don't want to lose any of my nice glass head pins. They're all very fine and pretty. I can then attach the buttons to the front, and this was difficult. I'm really glad they're not functioning buttons, because I had to sew around the very edge to catch the fabric where it was a little bit looser. And to have that penny on the inside was unhelpful for sewing. So I had to go round maybe 2 or 3 times around the edge so that they won't fall off. Now we're on to the last bit of the skirts, and I'm going to go do a gathering thread. So this panel is 9 inches and I want to squish it down into 4.5 inches. And in retrospect, I should have done pleats because I think pleats are prettier, but I did gathers because I was short on time. And they are okay. They would look better if I wore this dress with a petticoat, because then they would puff out nicely. This side of the placket is just folded under neatly and sewn down. This is going to be the outside of the placket. And I added some hooks and eyes to finish it off. So I'm going to do another little sort of faux button placket on the back. It's going to have little pointed ends, so I just made a little strip of fabric, sewed around, given little pointed ends, and turned it inside out. The 2 velvet panels don't actually meet in the middle at the back. They stop after the last dart, so I needed this just to cover up all the funny business that's happening. And also this will be on top and have a skirt hook. So that can just pop on there. Matching centres, I can sew that on. One side is secured by stitches, and the other side is secured with a skirt hook. And then I can actually sew down the back pieces, because I was a little bit worried about how they were going to work until I actually did the closure. But I was happy with the lines I had on the pattern, so I just sewed down those seam allowances. And I knew that this was going to have a blouse underneath, so I wasn't too worried about how much back was showing. And there is my closure. I have my skirt hooks, and I added some snaps for extra security. Got 3 of those at the back. And these are actually very difficult to do by yourself, so good to have a friend who knows where your snaps are. And that's how it closes. Just need to put my last 2 faux buttons on. Oh no, hem. We always leave the hem to last because everyone hates hems. Oh, well, we're nearly there. I cut off the excess and it had been hanging for a few days anyway, so I wasn't worried about any bias pulling or anything. I used my original pattern pieces and cut off a 5-inch strip of velvet. I plonked it along the bottom and turned it under for a nice neat hem and whipped it to the front. It was also an added advantage as it added a nice weight to the skirt and pulled it down and made it stop shifting around and doing anything weird, so that was a added advantage. And with the hem done, the dress was complete. I teamed it up with a silk shirt with big bishop sleeves and a little straw bow tie hat with a bow tie. Well, now the dress is complete. I hope that was interesting to you. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like and a comment, and feel free to subscribe if you want to see more. I'll be back in 2 weeks with a new video. Bye for now.